Hello and welcome back to my Facebook page or to my YouTube channel. In a previous video, I talked about how learning vocabulary actually covers most, if not all, parts of language. And today I am simply giving an example of that by introducing a word that you probably don't know and explaining to you the many different parts that involve learning or knowing this word. So let's start with spelling. You saw the spelling and it's H-E-E-D. And spelling helps you to recognize the word when you see it in writing, and it helps you when you want to write it. So that when I want to use this word in writing, I can be sure that I am writing the right code of letters together, so that when the reader reads them, he or she would know that this is the word that I want to use. And then there is pronunciation, which is the mirror of spelling. Pronunciation is about speaking, the spoken language, and, well, spelling goes with writing. So the pronunciation goes like this. We say heed, and in the phonetic transcription you see these symbols. We have an H in the beginning, a D at the end, and an intermediate vowel sound. We say E, so we say heed. That's the pronunciation. So you need to know that this is the pronunciation of it. When someone says it in front of you, you know it. And when you want to say it, you say these sounds one after the other. So we have three sounds. We have a consonant sound in the beginning, another at the end, and a vowel sound between them. And then after that there is register. I will talk about register briefly because it's something that not a lot of people pay enough attention to, and it's very important. For example, a word can be formal. That means we use it in professional settings. When you talk to your university doctor, for example, you talk in a formal way. You don't talk to him or to her in the same way you speak with your friend, for example. And there is informal language, language that is used casually between friends, between family members, for example. And then there is spoken language or spoken vocabulary. Some words are only used in spoken language and we don't usually write them. And there is the opposite, which is written. Some words are only written and it's very unnatural to use them in spoken language. And literary, words that are used in literature. And lastly, there are words that are offensive. That means disrespectful and words that you shouldn't use unless you know exactly the situation you're in. Now, we are talking about the word heed today. We talked about spelling and we talked about pronunciation. Now, the word heed is a formal word. So you know that we use it in formal situations. And it's not a good idea to go and use it in an informal situation. There are alternatives for it in an informal situation, and we will talk about that. Now the next thing is meaning. Now we arrive at meaning. We talked about spelling, pronunciation, then register, and then meaning. These three should always go before meaning. Now for meaning, there is something that you should consider, and it's very necessary. It's part of a speech, because for each meaning of a word, most words have many different meanings. And usually these meanings can be like verbs, can be nouns, can be adjectives. So the first meaning that we will cover is a verb. And it goes like this. The meaning is to pay attention to. So it's quite simple in meaning. But here this meaning is a verb. Now the next thing is, what kind of verb is it? Now it's like I'm making things complicated, right? But bear with me, there are words or there are verbs that are transitive, and that means that these words take an object. These verbs take an object after them. Sometimes one object, sometimes two. For example, play football. I play football. What do you play? I play football. So after play there is an object. The object is football. And there are intransitive verbs, verbs that don't take an object. And these verbs, I would say, are two categories. Verbs that are followed by a preposition and verbs that are followed or by no preposition, let's say. Confused you. Wait a minute. For example, there is leave. Leave is an intransitive verb. It can be transitive sometimes, but in this example, when I say, my father left, and I stop the sentence. So there is nothing after leave. And the meaning is complete. So I don't need anything, I don't need an object after it. But sometimes these intransitive verbs are followed by a preposition. And there is a big group of verbs that are followed by prepositions. And the challenge here is to know what is the preposition that goes after this verb. And sometimes it's not just one preposition, it's many. So for example, we say go to. Go is an intransitive verb, usually. So you say go to a place. I can't say for example, I go school, I say I go to school. I need to. And I don't say I go for school, I say I go to school. When I say I come from school, I don't come to school. I can't say I come to school, but usually it's come from. That is come back. Back also is a word that can follow the verb come. I gave a lot of examples, let's move on. Okay. The next thing is to find out what kind of verb is the word heed. And the answer for that is that it's a transitive verb. And that means it takes an object. So after heed, there needs to be an object. After that, there is collocations with meaning one. And that's me making things even more complicated, right? No, it's just how you learn it. So collocations are like, for example, warning. An example is heed my warning. Another one, advice. For example, heed the teacher's advice. And word, for example, heed my word when I say that this is not going to happen. So I haven't explained, but through the examples, collocations are words that come together with the word that you are learning. For example, the word now is heed, and these three words, they usually come with the word heed. So people usually use them together. So we say, heed my warning, heed my advice, and heed my word. Do they always come together? No. But usually, these are common expressions. There is a link between these words, right? And that's an interesting thing. You can learn, like now we are learning sentences. We're not just learning one word, we are learning a sentence. Now let's go to meaning two. It's not just one meaning, there are two meanings. And before we go with meaning two, we need to know, is it a noun or is it a verb or an adjective or something else? Luckily, it's just a noun, and also luckily, it's a simple noun, and it's the mirror of the verb meaning. The verb is to pay careful attention to, now, or just to pay attention to. The noun is careful attention as a noun. I mentioned there are alternatives to the word in informal language, so we just say pay attention to. We don't need to say heed. In informal language, we use pay attention to. Look at me, for example. And then, well, for meaning two, there is something that we should know, which is usage. Usage goes like this. It's like collocations, but it's in this way. We say, pay heed to something. Pay heed to something. So here we are saying that we say the word pay with the word heed. These are collocations, right? But we say exactly pay heed to something. They go together, like this. So we have pay before it, and to after it, and then something. So now it's like I have a full form together, and I just need to fill in the gap. So I say, pay heed to my advice. Another way to use it is to say, take heed of my advice. For example, take heed of my warning. And I used also the collocation warning. So now all the sentence here, take heed of my warning, is not my sentence. It's something that I learned with the word. And pay attention also to the idea that we don't say pay heed of something, we say pay to. And we don't say, in the same way, we don't say take heed to something, we say take heed of something. So these forms, they go like this together. There is no possibility to change to and use of, or to change of and use to. Okay? So you need to know that to goes with pay and of goes with take. And I think that's all. That's all of it. We gave an example, quite an extensive example. I covered like everything possible, I would imagine. There are other things, I'm sure, but that's mostly everything that you'll be dealing with. The basics, pronunciation and spelling and register, I would say these are the basics. And then meaning, absolutely. Meaning 1, meaning 2. For each meaning, what part of speech is it? Is it a noun or is it a verb? Let me make myself bigger. Nice. Is it a noun or is it a verb? Is it an adjective, for example? We talked about collocations and we talked about usage. That's it for today. Thank you so much. See you around.